Manitoba school divisions will share an extra $80 million in provincial funding for the next school year. This is a 3.5% budget increase. Provincial spending on schools now just under $2 billion. Alan Campbell is president of the Manitoba School Boards Association, with us live here on 680 CJOB. Good to see you. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Thanks, Richard. You as well.
That's a lot of money. Need to start the questions with how will this affect, if at all, the property tax portion of our school taxes that are coming up? Will it have an impact?
It will. I think it's inevitable that most Manitobans who pay education property tax will see an increase to some extent on their education property tax bills. First of all, as president of MSBA and as the chair of a school board here, not too far from here, north of Winnipeg, want to recognize that any new investment, any increase in support from the provincial government is important. Fully recognizing the really tough fiscal situation that the provincial government finds itself, an austerity footing, I think, is some of the verbiage that comes from Broadway these days. But also mindful that education is the second largest portfolio of the provincial government, second only to health, and school boards will watch the details of today's announcement closely as they play out across the province.
Today's announcement gives school boards a general idea or a specific idea of how much money is coming?
Well, there's two sort of releases of information, if you will. There's the provincial focus that comes out in the press conference that the minister held earlier today. And then each individual school division, the school board chair and their senior administration team will receive division-specific correspondence from the minister and her team about what today's announcement looks like on the ground, which will inform budget development conversations that for my school division and for others are happening. Like, I'm going right from here to a budget development meeting for our board in Interlake.
So newer areas of the city of Winnipeg, or areas that have a lot of commercial businesses, or areas that have fewer commercial businesses, areas that have farms, others that don't, those are all the variations and all the variables involved, correct?
Correct. You're speaking to the education funding model, which is a decades-old topic in this sector, and the fact that there is not equity in terms of the amount of revenue that a school board can generate depending on the tax base that it holds.
And so successive governments have tried to revamp that, and we're still nowhere near what needs to be done in this province, correct?
Correct. And I would say that we've shared our disappointment on behalf of school boards with the provincial government. The current government was elected with commentary during the campaign about the need to continue on with what the previous government had started, with an ed funding review and ultimately a change in how education is funded. Because right now, like I said, school divisions with a more lucrative tax base, be it commercial land, be it cottage country, be it significant residential growth, makes revenue generation to support public schools in those communities easier than it does in communities that may not see that growth, which, that's a reality that it flies in the face of this government's, professed mandate, which we would share as boards, to make sure that no matter what public school a Manitoba student is in, they receive the same quality of education programming.
Minister's saying that this is beyond inflation at 3.5%. It is, but you're also trying to pay for teacher settlements that were at or just above inflation as well, and the ever-growing needs of schools to keep the heat on.
Correct. We're in a people business in public education. Over 80% of the expenses in public school divisions are toward staff salaries and benefits. So when you look at places where reductions need to be made, you can't reduce the hydro bill, and you can't reduce the fuel bill for school buses, and you can't reduce the hydro bill because you need lights. But if you need to, if you're forced to make cuts because provincial funding doesn't keep pace with the need, and you don't want to continue to saddle your education property taxpayers with increases to their bills, the only alternative is to cut people. And then so that inevitably creates larger class sizes and longer waits for clinician assessments and all the other services that are provided to students by people in our public schools.
But at first blush, this is not something that would result in many school divisions, if at all, having to cut people, correct? correct?
Well, correct. None of the school boards in Manitoba are going into this budget with, I would say, the inevitable need to reduce positions. Perhaps some are in some places, because we recognize that we can't continue to sustainably assess our education property taxpayers with significant increases.
But we're seeing in parts of Manitoba still a lot of growth that, we still have portable classrooms, that we still can't satisfy the needs of growing families, be it south and southeastern Manitoba, be it southeast city of Winnipeg as well, that there's a whole lot of education needs that are barely being met.
Well, and what you're referring to is only as it pertains to communities that are growing. In every public school in Manitoba, there is a shortage of clinicians, social workers, occupational therapists, speech pathologists, nursing, like nurses to provide more acute medical care, which is a reality in public schools that wasn't really the case 15 or 20 years ago. But I think, like, to your point, it's a combination of enrollment growth and rapid growth in divisions that are seeing it. But then it's also the case of trying to sustain public schools in communities that aren't seeing that growth, but are every bit as deserving of really quality education in those communities.
Alan Campbell, President, Manitoba School Boards Association, thank you so very much for your time this afternoon.
You're welcome.